Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the very first lesson in Unit 7. So, if you haven't watched the introduction to Unit 7, please do that first and then come back to this video because it'll really help you get started in the unit. Unit 7 assumes that we know everything that we learned back in Unit 1 about ratios, and it's going to take us further. So, if you hear the word ratios and you think like, oh, I know we learned that, but I've kind of forgotten some. It might be good to either go back and watch some Unit 1 videos or just take your book and sort of page through it and remind yourself, like, oh, I remember that. I remember that about rates and ratios to help you get started in this unit. So, this is Lesson 1, and Lesson 1 starts out, as you can see, starts out with some paint. Now, if you think about the paint that you see either in your house or if you go and visit a friend, the color they have on their walls, or if you think of school, the color that we have on our walls at school, there's lots and lots of different colors. So here's a tricky question. When you go to the store to buy paint to paint your walls, what color do they sell? It's kind of a trick question. The answer is white. They sell white paint. Now, you might be going, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right because I have blue walls, or I have yellow on my walls, or I have purple, or I have tan, whatever the color may be. Our classroom walls have some green on it. So you might be saying, wait a minute, how could our walls have green on it at school if they sell white paint? Well, the answer is when you choose your paint, when you choose the color you want, they actually dye it right there at the store. If you haven't gone and bought paint, you might not know that. But hold on, let me show you kind of how the process works. So, say I was thinking about painting one of my walls, an accent wall, something in the reds. So I would go to a store that sells paint, and they have all of these cards that you can look at, that you can choose. Notice how many different colors of red, and this is by far not all the colors of red that you could choose. Some of them are more purpley. These ones in this card are a little more purpley of a red. These ones are a little more orangey. Those ones are a little more orangey. These are a little more sort of rust colored. So there's a ton of different colors. So you look at these cards until you find the color that you want. So if you said, well, gosh, this whiplash, that's the name of this color right there. I don't know who names paint, but they've got a fun job because it's pretty fun to name colors. So you say, this is the color right here. So you take that up to the person who works there and say, this is the color paint I want. What you'll see them do then is go and choose a can of white paint. Now they'll ask you what kind of sort of finish you want on it. If you want it to be shiny, glossy, if you want to be kind of be flat, different kinds of finishes for different paints work well in different areas. But it's white paint. So they get the white paint and then they type into the computer, they put the paint inside a cabinet and they type into the computer and they say, you want whiplash red. The computer knows exactly how many squirts of different color paint to put into your bucket. In fact, you might even see the attendant pry the lid off the paint can and then stick it in there because the machine will squirt the colors you want into your bucket. Then they put the lid back on, seal it tight, and then they put it in and shake it up. There's a shaker, actually. It's really it's a cool thing. It's really a paint shaker, and it shakes the can of paint, and then it mixes it all up so that when you open the can at home and take it out, it's this red color. It's not white anymore. They put just the right amount of paint. Now, you can tell by all these different colors of red that they don't just squirt in one color of red paint. It's a mix. So in these, they probably put, in these ones that are kind of purplish, if you know much about art, you probably know that red and blue together make purple. So these ones that are kind of purplish, they probably put a little bit of red in. These ones that are orangish, you know that red and yellow make orange. So they probably put a little bit of yellow paint in there. The ones that are lighter have more white paint. The ones that are darker have more squirts of paint, so it's just darker. So this is really important to understand today's lesson, and also it's great to help us understand ratios. So I have a whole bunch of paint for us here. Now, when you go to the store to buy these little ones, like little acrylic paints, they've already colored them. So you don't just buy white like you do when you go to buy paint like that goes on your walls. But this is you can buy white, but these all have interesting names. Bright yellow. Look at all these different colors of blue. This is Blue Haven. This is baby blue. This is kind of a teal, Bahama blue. We've got a couple different kinds of green, green tree, festive green. So each of the colors of the paint is just slightly different and they give it a different name. That's really important to help us understand today's lesson. So when you come up with a new specific shade of a paint, then, well, maybe you get to name it. I don't know. Maybe the namer gets to name it. But either way, they give it a very particular name to help us know which shade of green or yellow or blue or whatever may be. So let's check that out. Okay, so I am on page 337, and our book is telling us about two different colors of paint. Grasshopper green is one color of green paint, and gorgeous green is another color of green paint. So we are going to take a look at how we can compare the colors of green. Now, we know that we've got three different colors here. You can see this one's a little more teal, kind of bluer. This one is a little darker. This one's a little lighter. So these are festive green, Bahama blue, actually. It's called blue, even though it looks kind of green, and green tree. Now, there we can compare ratios to tell us, we can even look at the amounts to tell us which color is going to be a little more yellowish and which color is going to be a little more bluish, because you probably remember that when you put yellow and blue together, it gets green. So if we are going to make some green paint, we're actually going to do it with yellow and blue. So I have bright yellow and baby blue. Now, I have no idea if this is actually going to give us the color they had in mind when they said grasshopper green and gorgeous green, but we're going to try it. And we are going to compare the ratios to try to figure out which one is bluer and which one is more yellow. Okay, so let's start. So the recipe for grasshopper green is 2 squirts of blue to 7 squirts of yellow. So here's what that looks like. We're going to imagine that we have a big can of white paint and we've just opened the top and put it into the paint machine, and it squirts out 2 squirts of blue and 7 squirts of yellow. Now, I actually try to do that with drops right here. So we'll see how this goes. I did shake this up. I'm just not sure how the drops are going to squirt out, but let's try it. So we need 2 blue. There's 1, 2. All right. And then we need 7 drops of yellow. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So there's 2 squirts of blue with 7 squirts of yellow. I'm going to mix that up. All right. I mixed that up, and there is the color that I got when I mixed it up. So that is my grasshopper green color right there. All right. Now, the other color they have is gorgeous green, and I'm going to use this plate for the gorgeous green. So our book tells us gorgeous green is 4 squirts of blue to 5 squirts of yellow. So here's what that looks like. We need to put in 4 squirts of blue and 5 squirts of yellow. So here goes the blue. I don't know if you can see this or not, or maybe I'm in your way here. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4 squirts of blue, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is obviously not very scientific. I think they do a lot better of a job of measuring the squirts if you're at the paint store than I did. But here's the blue and the yellow, so we're going to mix this in together. So this is our gorgeous green. There it is. And there's the color of our gorgeous green. Now, let's see if we can see a difference in these two colors. Well, the lighting's bad, but you can see a difference. So that's kind of neat. Okay, now, as you always hear me say, I hope you're doing this along with me. If you have paint, it doesn't have to be blue and yellow, but if you have two sort of primary colors that you can blend together to make a secondary color, you will much better understand the ratio situation and just math in general. So if you can, please pause this video, go find some paint, and mix your paint right along with me. Otherwise, enjoy watching me mix paint, I guess. So when we mixed our two paints, I don't know if you can tell, just because the lighting is bad, but you can actually see that one is a more yellowy color and one is a more bluey color. Well, that's not surprising because their ratios are different. So it wants us to say, how can we tell without actually doing what we just did, which is mix the paint? If we just knew their ratios, we just knew that gorgeous green was 4 to 5, and if we just knew grasshopper green was 2 to 7, how could we figure out which one is going to be bluier and which one is going to be yellower? Well, one way to do that is to make one of the colors the same amount, and then make an equivalent ratio for the other color to try to look at the numbers in some kind of a matching way. So one way to do that is to take the number of drops, in this case it's 7 and 5, and find a product of those two. You could either choose one of their multiples of one of those two, or you could just multiply them together, and then you can figure out an equivalent ratio. So let's just do 7 times 5, because if we did 35 drops of yellow and 35 drops of yellow in the other one, 35 drops of yellow for the grasshopper green, 35 drops of yellow for the gorgeous green, now we have a way to compare them. They both have 35 drops of yellow. How did we get from 7 to 35? We multiplied it by 5. If we multiply this part of the ratio by 5, what do we have to do to the other part of the ratio? We have to multiply it by 5. It's like taking 5 times that recipe. We only did 2 and 7. And frankly, you're not going to make you sit here and watch me drop out 35 drops of yellow. That would be ridiculous. But we could do it 5 times the same, just what we did, but just do it 5 times over. Then we would have 35 drops of yellow, and blue was 2, so if we did 5 times, it would be 10. So we have 10 drops of blue compared to 35 drops of yellow, and that's for grasshopper green. Now, let's look at gorgeous green. We had 5 drops of yellow, but we want to get it to 35. How do we get from 5 to 35? We'd have to do 7 different recipes, wouldn't we? 7 times over. The same ratio, 4 to 5, but instead of just this little one with 4 and 5 drops, we'd have to do it 7 times. So we multiplied the yellow. 5 times 7 is 35. If you do it on one side of the ratio, you got to do it to the other side. So we're multiplying that one by 7 too. If we did 7 recipes of the yellow, we got to do 7 recipes of the blue. 4 times 7 is 28. Now we have a way that we can compare them. Grasshopper green has 10 blues for 35 yellows. Gorgeous green has 28 blues for 35 yellows. Now, our book asks us the question, which one of these recipes, and we're calling them recipes, even though they're recipes for paint, which one of these recipes, we could call them formulas maybe, which one of these recipes or formulas, which one makes a paint that's bluer that looks like it's more blue. Interestingly, you can actually see the difference in our plate, can't you? You can see that gorgeous green looks a lot more blue and grasshopper green looks a lot more yellow. Now, how does that look with the numbers? Look at this. For every 35 drops of yellow, gorgeous green has 28 drops of blue. It's not quite half and half, but it's not a long ways off. Look at grasshopper green. For every 35 drops of yellow, there's only 10 drops of blue. It's about a third. So this one is not quite half and half, and this one, the blue is about a third as much as the yellow. So it makes sense that gorgeous green is a lot bluer of a green, and grasshopper green is a lot more yellow of a green. That's a little confusing, but I think you can figure out how to make sense of it, especially when you try it yourself and have some practice mixing paint. Now, the book wants us to stop and then figure out which one is more yellowy. Well, it might be easy to just say, well, the other one. If one of them is more bluey, then the other one must be more yellowy. But let's actually try to prove that. So we are going to use the values for the blue and make them the same, and then see what that does for yellow. Now, we've got blue is 2 and 4. One strategy to make those equal is just multiply those two together, because we know that each of those is a factor in their final product. So let's change the blue to 8 and the blue and the gorgeous green to 8. So now we're having the same amount of blue. Let's check this out. We put the same amount of blue in. Now we wonder, compared to this amount of blue that we put in, which one has a greater amount of yellow? Well, so how did we get from 2 to 8? Our recipe had us putting 2 in, but we could do 4 times that much, 4 recipes of that. Instead of putting 2 drops on, I could have put 4 times that much and put 8 drops on. But if I put 8 drops of blue on 4 times as much, well, I have to do that same change to find an equivalent ratio. I have to do the same change to the yellow. So 7 times 4, and started with 7, 4 groups of that is 28. So now the grasshopper green, I have 8 blues and 28 yellows. So let's look at the gorgeous green. I started out at 4, but I'm trying to make it the same, so I'm going to change it to 8. How did I get from 4 drops to 8 drops? Well, I did 2 recipes. I multiplied it by 2. I did twice. So if I'm doing twice as much blue, I need to do twice as much yellow. 5 times 2 is 10. Now, take a look. The blue is the same. For every 8 blue squirts of grasshopper green, we need 28 squirts of yellow. Well, that's a lot. What about gorgeous green? For every 8 squirts of blue, we need 10 squirts of yellow. So which one is yellowier? I made that word up. You can easily tell that it's the grasshopper green, right? 8 to 28 is a lot of yellow. 8 to 10, that's almost even. Not quite even, but pretty close. 8 to 28, it's more than 3 times as much, isn't it? So, which one is more yellow? Grasshopper green. When we look at the stuff we made, grasshopper green. Now, one of the main things it wants us to learn in this lesson, and also through this unit, is that we can compare ratios. So we're comparing the ratio of the grasshopper green paint to the ratio of the gorgeous green paint. We're comparing the two, we're looking at the two ratios to see if we can draw some conclusions about it. You're going to be doing that for several different lessons using different things, juice, flowers, a whole bunch of things. So what you're going to be looking for each time is to see how these parts of the ratio, what are they like? Are they about equal? Is one about double the other? Is one a third as much or three times as much? What about a fourth or four times? So you're looking for the relationship between the parts of the ratio, and then you're comparing that to the relationship between the same parts but of a different ratio. That's what comparing ratios means. Means you're looking at the relationship in one ratio and comparing it, telling how it's the same, or actually in this case different too, that would be contrasting, how it contrasts to the relationship in the other ratio. I hope this was helpful for you. Good luck, and we'll see you next time. Bye.